pro wrestler Sid Vicious, a star at the height of the WrestleMania era of the early 1990s, whose career ended with a horrific and televised leg injury, has died after battling cancer for several years. He was 63. His death was announced on social media by son Gunnar Eudy. He was a man of strength, kindness, and love, and his presence will be greatly missed, Gunnar Eudy wrote about Vicious, who also went by the ring names Lord Humongous, Vicious Warrior, Sid Justice, and Sycho Sid, but was born Sidney Raymond Eudy on December 6, 1960. Taking his most enduring ring name from the doomed punk rocker and Sex Pistols bassist who died in 1979, Eudy began wrestling in 1987, rising to national prominence 2 years later when he joined World Championship Wrestling. Moving over to the WWE in 1991 as Sid Justice, Eudy entered into a notorious feud with Hogan a year later. In the early to mid-1990s, Eudy was among the headliners for the popular WrestleMania events, winning various world championships for both the WWE and WCW. Eudy also took part in 1997 on Monday Night Raw. Eudy's grappling career came to a stomach-churning end in what remains one of the ghastliest moments in televised wrestling history. During a pay-per-view match in January 2001, Eudy jumped off a turnbuckle and landed badly. His left leg snapped and dangling at a grotesque angle, bones poking through his skin. Decades later, Eudy would remember the life-changing injury in a TV interview, saying that he was still recuperating from a shoulder injury when he was convinced by a WCW executive to return and perform the rope jump. Although Eudy agreed to the return, the stunt, he said, was something I didn't want to do, and I wasn't comfortable doing. Plans for a memorial service are pending. Eudy is survived by wife Sabrina Page and sons Gunnar and Frank. Eudy was a 6-time world champion, having won the WWF Championship twice, the WCW World Heavyweight Championship twice, and the USWA Unified World Heavyweight Championship twice. In addition to world title success, Eudy held the WCW United States Heavyweight Championship once, among other accolades, during his tenures with the WWF and WCW. Eudy headlined multiple pay-per-views for both organizations, main eventing WrestleMania 8 and WrestleMania 13 in 1992 and 1997 respectively, as well as Starrcade in 2000. Eudy entered wrestling after an encounter with Randy Savage and his brother Lanny Poffo. After being trained by Tojo Yamamoto, Eudy made his debut as he teamed with Austin Idol and wrestled the team of Nick Bockwinkel and Jerry Lawler. He then adopted the masked wrestler persona known as Lord Humongous. He began his career in Continental Championship Wrestling (CCW) in 1987 under a mask and the name Lord Humongous. On Christmas Day 1987, he won the NWA Southeastern Heavyweight Championship Northern Division, going on to be the final title holder. Later he turned fan favorite after rekindling a kayfabe childhood friendship with Shane Douglas, resulting in the two forming a tag team and capturing the NWA Southeastern Tag Team Championship. He also competed in New Japan Pro Wrestling (NJPW), where he challenged Tatsumi Fujinami for the IWGP Heavyweight Championship under the name Vicious Warrior, but was unable to win the title. Eudy then made a very brief stint in World Class Championship Wrestling (WCCW), where he adopted one of his most notable ring names, Sid Vicious, which he took from the punk rock musician of the same name, who played bass for the Sex Pistols. In 1989, Eudy signed with World Championship Wrestling and retained his Sid Vicious ring name. He made his televised debut in WCW by defeating Dwayne Bruce on the June 17, 1989 episode of Pro. Originally slated as a singles wrestler, Eudy was eventually paired with Danny Spivey to form the Skyscrapers, managed by Teddy Long. The Skyscrapers feuded with the Steiner Brothers and the Road Warriors. During this time, he incorporated the powerbomb as his finishing move. The team was short-lived. Eudy was replaced by Mean Mark Callis after suffering a broken rib and a punctured lung during a match with the Steiner Brothers at the November 1989 Clash of the Champions X. Following his recovery, Eudy was introduced on the May 11, 1990 edition of NWA Power Hour as the newest member of Ric Flair's Four Horsemen, and he was billed by the ring announcers as being from wherever he damn well pleases. Sid was the muscle of the group and initially brought in to counteract the strength of RoboCop at Capital Combat. His first televised match back was a 26-second loss to Lex Luger on Clash of the Champions, in which the referee performed a fast 3 count in an interview in 2018. Sid stated the reason for the quick loss was punishment by Booker Ole Anderson for having been seen playing softball during time off while he was rehabilitating from his punctured lung. As one of the Horsemen, Eudy feuded with Paul Orndorff and the Junkyard Dog. He attacked NWA World Heavyweight Champion Sting following the Champions title match of Clash of the Champions the 12th, setting up his first feud as a singles wrestler. At Halloween Havoc, a fake Sting, Barry Windham, in collusion with Sid, let Sid pin him after switching places with the real Sting in order for Sid to win the belt. They were thwarted when the real Sting came out and beat Sid to retain the title. He returned late in the year as a challenger for Scott Steiner's WCW World Heavyweight Championship, but Sid failed to defeat Steiner in their title match at Starrcade. On January 14, 2001, at the Sin pay-per-view in Indianapolis at Conseco Fieldhouse, now Gainbridge Fieldhouse, Sid faced Steiner, Jeff Jarrett, and Road Warrior Animal in a Four Corners match for the WCW World Heavyweight Championship. During the match, he suffered a near-career-ending injury. WCW executive John Laurinaitis allegedly felt that Eudy needed to broaden his arsenal of wrestling moves and suggested that he try an aerial maneuver, despite his unwillingness. Eudy felt it unnecessary for a wrestler of his size and type to do high spots and did not feel comfortable doing them. During the match, Eudy suffered a leg fracture following his leap from the second turnbuckle in an attempted big boot on Steiner. This had him awkwardly landing with all his weight on one foot while kicking with the other, severely fracturing the leg on which he landed. Eudy broke his left leg in half, snapping both the tibia and fibula, with at least one of the bones breaking through the skin, and rotating his foot without his input at 90 degrees anti-clockwise. The fracture was too graphic for many television stations to re-air, although it was shown on the following Nitro. After WCW was bought by the WWF in March 2001 and following surgery, Eudy was faced with the prospect of rehabilitation of his leg for 3 to 5 days per week for at least the next year. He was told by his doctor that he would never run again, and Sid set a goal of being able to do so. At first he was limited to using a cane, but through extensive effort was able to not only walk again, but in time run. During his arduous rehabilitation, Eudy made several appearances as World Wrestling All-Stars' WWA commissioner during its 2002 Australian tour, though at the beginning of WWA as Sydney show. Sid also filed a lawsuit with the Universal Wrestling Corporation, the Turner Holding Company, for what remained of WCW's unpurchased assets, seeking redress for the injury that he sustained. The judge ultimately ruled in favor of the UWC. On the June 25, 2012, episode of Raw, Eudy made his return to WWE as Sycho Sid in a match against Heath Slater, where he defeated Slater as part of the ongoing celebration building up to WWE's 1000th episode of Raw. It was his first appearance on Raw since the July 14, 1997 episode and his first match on the show since June 9, 1997. Eudy would reappear on the actual 1000th episode on July 23, where he and other WWE legends helped Lita take down Slater. On August 5, 2017, Sid wrestled the last match of his career, defeating Paul Rosenberg in Ottawa, Ontario for Great North Wrestling. Eudy and his wife, Sabrina Paige Niestes, were married on December 30, 1983, in Shelby County, Tennessee. They have two sons, Frank, a cast member on the CBS reality show Big Brother 14 and 18, and Gunnar Eudy, who is also a wrestler. At the time of his death in August 2024, Eudy lived with his wife in Marion, Arkansas. Eudy was a fan of softball. During his time off from wrestling, he briefly played softball between 1997 and 1999. In January 2011, Eudy was arrested in Shelby County, Tennessee. Initially pulled over for and charged with not wearing his seatbelt, Eudy was also charged with misdemeanor possession of marijuana and driving without a license. He was later released on $1,000 bond.